Good day. This is Solidarity News Brief, bringing you news highlighting the dignity of human life from conception to natural death. I'm Rene Cabanino. I'm joined today here by two members of the American Solidarity Party. Desmond Silveira is an executive director of the California chapter of the American Solidarity Party and is also a member of the National Committee of the American Solidarity Party, and is also a member of the data analysis group at the American Solidarity Party. Bryce Worgan is also on the National Committee of the American Solidarity Party, and is also a data analyst for the American Solidarity Party. Thank you both for joining me today. We're going to discuss the election from 2024 and some of the results that have come out slowly for the write-in votes, in particular for Peter Sonski. So I'll start with Desmond. So Desmond, as you know, with the campaign of Robert Kennedy Jr., it seems that ballot access has been generally more difficult for third-party presidential candidates in this past election cycle. Can you comment on this from your assessment nationwide and specifically in California, and just generally about ballot access obstacles, I think, for third parties in general, and in particular for the American Solidarity Party? I know it's a loaded question, but if you could help us with that.
Sure. So it's true that ballot access has gotten harder for non-duopoly, meaning non-Republican, Democratic candidates this year. That waxes and wanes over the years, but this has been a tougher year. It was in the past two presidential elections, the American Solidarity Party has gotten ballot access in Colorado. This year, we were not able to do that because Colorado made it switch from being one of the easiest ballot access states to one of the toughest. So that was a loss for us. The other difference between this year and 2020 was that back in 2020, certain states made some ballot access concessions because of the COVID lockdown. When being locked down, it made it so much tougher to get signatures to qualify for the ballot. And not only is it tougher, it's also a safety concern. So states like Vermont cut their ballot access requirements quite a bit, as did Illinois. Over here in California, it's been about the same as previous election cycles, but it still is one of the toughest states. There are two ways to qualify. You can either qualify as a party by getting around 77,000 voter registrations, or you can qualify with signatures, but it's so much more that no one even attempts that. People generally go.
Which is a lot. Which is a lot, correct?
Yeah. I think it's hundreds of thousands of signatures. So that's the state of ballot access.
Gotcha. And do you think that with Peter Sonski this year, then there was more of a difficulty than generally because of just not being in that time of the pandemic, and also because of, I guess, a very predominant third-party candidate, Robert Kennedy Jr. being also in the run, perhaps made the prices go up for getting those signatures.
That's true. So there have been times when the cost of professional signature gatherers was substantially lower than it is now. I'm not sure. The cost went up with COVID, and it stayed up. Probably due to the Kennedy's entry into the marketplace, more right. Demand.
Right, that makes sense. So turning to you,
and I'd also like to jump in. Just one more comment, and I think that ballot access was also generally more difficult this year because the two major parties were paying more attention. In the past, we've seen the Democratic Party take legal action to keep the Green Party off the ballot, but this time both parties were making concerted efforts to challenge everything and basically try to keep everybody else off the ballot. So I know that affected us in a couple of different states where signatures were challenged, and we were kept off the ballot because of that. So.
Mm. Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, turning to you, Bryce, again, I had another question for you. You analyzed, so you've analyzed the election data by county of this past election of 2024, the presidential election, and compared it with 2020. Brian Carroll's run is another candidate for the American Solidarity Party back during the pandemic in 2020. So the ballot access situation was different at that time. But what is your just general assessment? Based on what you've done in terms of your analysis of the performance of the 2024 presidential candidate as opposed to the previous candidates, and what are your biggest surprises, and be it positive or negative?
Yeah, so I think that there was certainly some growth in the American Solidarity Party's performance. Um, it was less growth than I would have liked to see, but on the other hand, part of that was because as states that we expected to get ballot access in, like Pennsylvania and New Jersey, because of the legal challenges there, we were kept off the ballot. And that really made a difference between us perhaps getting close to 80,000 votes and the 47,000 that we did get, that Peter Sonski did get. I think, but the growth in vote totals by county and by state really varied a lot based on, I think, how active the chapters were in states where there was a active on the ground presence. You saw pretty large growth in states where there wasn't really a presence. We saw more minimal growth, and then there were even a couple states where we lost some votes, like Georgia and Connecticut. So I think I was more optimistic. I know about how much we were going to grow, but I think so that was to me one of the biggest surprises. But it does. You do have to keep in mind that if we had been successful in getting on the ballot in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, we'd be ecstatic at where our vote total was. So.
Right, makes sense. But the ballot access issue was a I think a very important issue in terms of the election the election result. It sounds like. So the other question I had is, you've done the analysis, and just overall, what is the calculation now of the election tally for Sonski, and how do you think it compares to other third party candidates, such as Randall Terry from the Constitution Party, and other candidates such as that have not as unlimited ballot access as other parties like the Libertarian Party and the other ones and can you speak to that, the Libertarian Party and the Green Party? How do they have ballot access all across the country?
Yeah, so I think the Libertarian Party, and so back when the Libertarian Party and the Green Party were forming, there were more, I think, lax ballot access laws. I think there were also, especially for the Libertarian Party, more lax campaign finance laws. The Libertarian Party was well funded when it was founded in the 70s, and they were able to leverage that money into ballot access. In their second election, I think they had ballot access in 48 states, something like that. So we don't really have the backing of too many mega donors like that, and even if we did, these days you're not allowed to donate the same type of money. So they were able to, get their name out there because of how much the money, how far the money went in getting them advertising. The Green Party was a little bit different. Obviously, there was an international green movement that led to Green Party founding across the world. And that type of environmental concern definitely drove the Green Party growth. And so they were able to build up infrastructure in a different period of time. I think that's why you see them being so prominent. And then you look at Robert Kennedy, who, even though he withdrew, still managed to beat out the Libertarian Party in terms of number of votes. And again, you see, obviously the Kennedy name has a lot of cachet, and he was well bankrolled, not only by himself, but then his vice presidential candidate had a huge infusion of cash into his campaign. And as we mentioned earlier, paying the signature gatherers, top dollar rates, meant that it was harder for everyone else to be gathering signatures. So overall, we did surpass Randall Terry. We surpassed the Constitution Party candidates. We were the 8th best candidate during this election, which I think is up from 9th last time out. There were the two major candidates, the 3 top tier third parties, and then there was Claudia de la Cruz of the Party of Socialism and Liberation, Cornel West, who was more or less independent, and then Peter. Almost half of Claudia's vote came out of the state of California. So, when you're looking at that vote total, you have to keep in mind, California is a massive state with many voters. There are more Solidarity Party voters in California than there are in any other state. And there are more people who are aligned with us but just haven't heard of us in California than there are in any other state. And we would be, getting huge numbers if we were on the ballot in California. Maybe not,
right,
what the Party of Socialism and Liberation are getting, but maybe we would.
Right.
It's just a matter of people hearing about us. So
makes sense. So yeah, thank you for that. So Desmond, and I know you've studied this, I think, extensively, the third parties and their history, and do you have anything to add regarding the Green Party and the Libertarian Party in terms of their ballot access? Pretty much guarantee, it looks like. And how does it work? Does that to renew it, or does it continue? They have pretty much perennial ballot access at this point. And then just also if you could just start with that one.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily have anything to add regarding the early Green and Libertarian acquisition of ballot access. Whether the whole renewal process really is determined at the state level. So in each state, it's going to be different. But I would like to add that in our own effort to get on the ballot in California, I looked up the history of the Peace and Freedom Party to find out how they did it, and it was the case that ballot access rules were more lax back then, and they were able to do it with get out the vote drives over here in California.
Okay, makes sense. And also, Desmond, same another question for you is just for you, what is your overall assessment of the American Solidarity Party's presidential candidate in 2024, and what are your biggest surprises, positive or negative? And if you could share what you think about that.
Sure. I wouldn't necessarily say that there are any big surprises. We did so much research and analysis prior to getting into this endeavor. So much of what we experienced was planned. I would phrase it not necessarily as surprises, but certain wins and losses. Getting on, being a recognized party in Hawaii and Florida, those were major wins for us. It was, especially in Florida, it's something that we've been working towards for around 8 years now. And so to finally be recognized as a party in Florida was a major win. There were certain campaign events that were also wins. Peter Sonski got an extended interview on EWTN, and it's the case that Brian Carroll has been on EWTN before as well, but with Peter Sonski's the big piece that they did on him, that one piece became one of their most popular videos ever. I looked at their YouTube videos. They have, EWTN has about 1,000 of them, a little over 1,000, and Peter Sonski's interview was their, I think, 45th most popular piece out of 1,000. So that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Out of 1,000, that's a big deal. Definitely. Great. And so going back to Bryce. So Bryce, just speaking county-wise, which counties had how did the results come out in the counties in terms of which one had the highest percentage, like voter percentage? Which one had the highest voter count for Peter Sonski? And yeah, so if you could start with that.
Yeah, so in terms of the most, just the most votes overall, because it's a little bit less interesting, I think. The states where we were on the ballot, we got more votes in because people could see us and they could just mark us down, and people can find out about us from the ballot. So the top three counties by votes overall, Franklin County, Ohio, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, which is that's Columbus and Cleveland, and Cincinnati, the three big cities in Ohio. Hamilton County was number 3 from Ohio. And then you have
that got ballot access, right? The state that had ballot access for the American Solidarity Party, Ohio, correct?
Yes. So Franklin County had over 1,000 votes in it for Peter Sonski, and Cuyahoga had 891, and then you look at counties that have a lot of people in them, like Los Angeles County. Actually, Los Angeles County was our 4th highest vote total in the whole country, and we weren't on the ballot in California. We got 662 votes out of Los Angeles. That's a lot. So, and then 5th most was Honolulu County in Hawaii, where we were also on the ballot. So that was actually one of the big surprises to me, was how strongly we did. We got about 1/5 of a percent of the vote in each of the Hawaii counties, and which was pretty strong. Um, uh, um, so, going back to what our surprises were, that was actually a surprise for me. In terms of the best percentage overall, um, so um, our best county in the whole country was um, Jefferson County, Ohio, which is where Steubenville is located, um, uh, home of Franciscan University. So I think we got over 0.5% of the vote in there. Um, and then our next best counties were all smaller counties. So there's McLeod County in Minnesota. We got 0.45%. And then Leyden Town in Massachusetts, we got 2 votes, which is 0.4% of the vote. But then we got 23 votes out of Atchison County, Kansas, which is where Benedictine University is located, and that accounts for about 1/3% of the vote. And Kansas was a write-in state, so these were surprisingly high totals. And then in um, and then St. Joe's County in Indiana, the home of the University of Notre Dame, the party got 307 write-in votes. St. Joseph County is not a big county, so that was over 0.25%. So better than 1 out of every 400 people in St. Joseph's County voted for Peter Sonski, even though he was a write-in, which meant that St. Joseph's County took longer than most of the rest of Indiana to count their ballots, count their write-ins. So,
Yeah. Speaking of which, So speaking of which write-in counties, write-in states have not tallied their votes yet, and why does that happen? Why don't they? Why if they write in, they don't tally their votes, they don't count their votes, and you expect any progress with regard to this, with this counting of the votes in these particular states?
Yeah, so well, there's a number of states where we just know we won't get the write-in totals. Alabama, for example, you have to request it within a week of the election and pay a lot of money for them to give it to you,
How much?
for them to count the write-in. I think one county might be a few $100s for just to count 20 votes.
Right.
So I know we're currently looking at the state of Oregon, and to get one county in Oregon, it would be $300 just to get the ballot images to be able to look through them and count them. So that is still a possibility. But then we have states, so Pennsylvania and New Jersey have unclear state laws about write-in votes. They both have constitutional guarantees that people can write in something, but it's unclear as to what their responsibility is to report them. And so I'd say about 50% of the 50% of the counties in Pennsylvania and New Jersey have given us write-in totals, and the rest are dragging their feet or claiming they don't have to, or just ignoring our calls. In Massachusetts, Lauren Onak, the vice presidential candidate, she headed up an effort to contact every township in Massachusetts, and I'd say about half of them just didn't respond. There were most of the people were really helpful. Some people didn't respond. Some people invented laws about why they didn't have to give vote totals, and um, and just dragged out the process until finally the Secretary of State. There was one town in Massachusetts that they finally got to admit that there were some votes they hadn't counted, and so they wrote to the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State said, "It's too late. Can't change the vote totals." And so we're still working on Pennsylvania and New Jersey to see where we can get. I just got an email from my contact in Pennsylvania that giving some more vote totals in another county. And then Rhode Island we've been in contact with them, and they say they're still counting the write-in votes, and they will get them out when they're done. So,
Okay.
In North Carolina, we thought we were going to be able to get write-in vote totals, but the legislature passed a law seizing control of the Board of Elections, and the new people, the legislative controlled Board of Elections has directed the counties not to give out any information on people who were written in but didn't meet the threshold, the petition threshold. So I don't think we're going to be able to get.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Bryce and Desmond. And I wanted to give you a chance to give final words on the situation with the election, and then in particular what you just mentioned, Bryce. It seems pretty undemocratic that somebody that does a write-in, that has a vote that's placed, is not counted and not officially registered. So it just seems like undemocratic. And just wondering what your thoughts are on those things, and also just generally on the election. Desmond, if you could start out.
Yeah, I say that we made gains this time around. As was pointed out, Brian Carroll got in 10th place last time. This time, I thought we were most likely going to get in 9th place among the candidates, but we made 8th place, beating out the Constitution Party. I'm hoping that next time around, 4 years from now, we can more handily beat the Constitution Party and be competitive with the socialists. We're still a very, very fast growing party, and we're making progress. We're making good progress.
Nice. And Bryce?
Yeah, so I think the one takeaway that I saw when I was looking at all of these is, I mentioned this earlier, but the states where there were really active state chapters for the past 4 years that were getting together, doing stuff, communicating with the state parties. We saw vote totals in Indiana and Missouri, grow about 60%, and then in states where there was less involvement, there was lower lower amounts of growth. And I think if I wanted somebody listening to this, if there was one takeaway, get involved now. Start getting people involved, start talking about solidarity issues and what a solidarity approach to these things are. People have been talking about how J.D. Vance has been advancing a message that sounds a lot like ours. He mentions whole life proposals. He mentions more economically family-oriented economics, and it sounds great, but it doesn't seem to be having any movement. And meanwhile, um, we do see in some of these actions that have been taken on immigration that there's not a real concern for the dignity of all lives. I think that um, you know we're the party that cares about the dignity of human life from conception to natural death and everywhere in between. And we want to make sure that human life is flourishing um, at all times. And yeah,
Yes.
but
Thank you.
it starts with us doing the legwork, getting people organized. I mean, and you just heard that there were over 600 people in York County, Renee, that voted for the Solidarity Party. There were over 300 people in Desmond's County. There were you know, 60 people in my county. Um, there are people out there who know about the party, and we just got to find them and you know make this a movement that's growing. Um,
That sounds good.
I'm
Thank
excited.
you, Bryce.
I'm excited to see what
Yeah.
the next 4 years has.
Yes. So yes, thank you for your comments. And yeah, one effect I believe that maybe Peter Sonski had on the election that is not on the voter tally is the influence on the major parties. And so maybe JD Vance's stances on being more open to parental leave and other things like that that are overall pro-family besides the abortion issue. Maybe it was because Peter Sonski was running and Peter Sonski was on his tail and he had to change his tune perhaps to get more votes, and now he has to. He knows that next 4 years, 4 years perhaps, um, and then the following after that, 4 years after that, the American Solidarity Party doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So he probably realizes that. So thank you both, and thank you and good night, and remember that all life, all human life, has dignity from conception to natural death.